short people, you know. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on. It should be.
Okay.
It's on.
We want you there, though. Good morning. Call this Wednesday morning, January 9th meeting of the Criminal Justice Committee to order. Start with a roll call.
Mr. Hess,
Present.
Mr. Byrne, Mr. Lear, Mr. Legess, Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Snipes, Miss Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Miss Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico, Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Smith, Ms. DiColo, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Seroy, Mr. Washington. We have a quorum.
Okay, I have not received anything for public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? You guys hear this all right? Okay. Any public comment at this time? Okay, you received a copy of the minutes from December 12th, 2018. Take a motion to approve. Anybody? Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Eckhoff. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I do not see the Chief Judge. Ms. Cianci. In your package you have a copy of the monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Legess, second by Mr. Carrico. Good morning, Sandy. Your report?
There's nothing, unless anyone has any questions about the regular report that you just approved. There's nothing unusual to highlight. The Harris & Harris collections report, they reported that we turned over 3,857 cases to them this last year. We're seeking $1.7 million from all of those cases. And the recovery, this last month in December we were ahead of most all of the years except for 2013 with collections. So far this year we were 300,000 more than we were last year. So that was a lot of good work and effort on the part of my staff and Harris & Harris. It's a combined effort. They send out letters and things. You can't hear me? They send out letters and they do their work with the collecting, and then a lot of the people come into the office and pay, or they pay through Harris. So there's a lot of involvement, but we did pretty well this last month. What else? The state's attorney court call report. I don't think we had Jim, I don't know. We didn't have, did we have one court call, collection call in December? Yeah, so that's for the difference for why there was less for that month. So a grand total of $105,921 was brought in through that avenue.
Any questions or comments on our report? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Computerization?
Yeah, right now we are working on, we're still working on the integration part for the civil. We've been working with CourtView and Tyler Technologies. They've been going back and forth. Finally, I saw an email yesterday where Tyler is waiting for CourtView to send in some files to be, I don't know what the word is for it, but they're getting ready to go through the testing and certification. That was the word I was looking for. Certification, and then they'll be able to start the testing, and then hopefully we'll be able to, when we receive the e-filing, we will be able to just move it over electronically rather than print it all off and then re-scan it back in. That's been a lot of work for our office. So that's where we are with that.
Questions or comments?
There's going to be a new fine and fee structure coming up this July 1st. The circuit clerks are being trained heavily in that. There's a training next month in February. They're having they're crossing it over 2 days because there's so much information. There'll be like an afternoon on a Wednesday and a morning on a Thursday, but I don't have my budget to have rooms to stay and bring staff, so we're going down on, they're doing a 1-day program on a Friday in February, so my chief deputy and I are going to go down for that. They're only allowing 2 per county to come down because of the space needs that they have. So I'll keep you more informed once we get more information on that.
Any questions or comments for Sandy?
Thank
Thank
you.
Mr. Rowe, State's Attorney. In your packet, we have a copy of the grand jury's report and a copy of the State's Attorney's Office statistics report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Lear, second by Mr. Burns. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Nice report.
You can see grand jury was our last one of December. That brought us to 786. And the trend continues, the majority of those drug and domestics. Forget at the last meeting someone had asked me for some year-end statistics and some comparisons. So I did put that together right after the Excel document in your packet. And I think what we had discussed at the last meeting was how the fact that we have filed more felonies and cases does not mean that there isn't necessarily an increase in crime. And I think if you look at these numbers, they bear that out. So you can see in 2015, the number of cases referred for prosecution by law enforcement agencies was 3,043. 2016, 2,943, 2017, 2,877, 2018, 2,775. So that number is steadily going down. The number of case filings are going the opposite direction. I mean, it just means we're filing more. And I think that is a testament to the communication and the cooperation we have with law enforcement agencies. We've been diligent in doing training with the agencies. We have regular meetings with the law enforcement agencies. We even have an annual meeting with them to go over some cold cases in their communities. So I think by working more closely with law enforcement, we've been able to bring more cases into the system. So you also see there's about a 20% reduction from 16 to 18 in misdemeanors filed. A portion of that is due to the diversion accountability program. We had 153 cases sent to diversion. Those again are nonviolent, low-level offenses, first-time offenders. And then you can look also at the next page, our juvenile caseload. You can see, just a lot of cases going through there. I kind of wanted to give you all an idea of the volume that our office handles. We have 1 juvenile prosecutor, you have 43 abuse and neglect cases, 203 juvenile delinquency cases, 18 truancy cases. So you're looking about 250, 260 cases coming through just in 2018 that juvenile prosecutor is handling, and that does not include the cases that are still on the docket from 2017, 2016. So they add up pretty quickly. In the civil caseload, this is where most of you probably have your most involvement with the state's attorney's office, especially apparently the chairman, who made 19 requests for representation in 2018. I think I was a distant second though, so that's not too bad. I asked for 8 opinions. And then in the next page, or actually the last page, you have mental health hearings, FOIAs, contract reviews, subpoenas, forfeitures. This is kind of the stuff that comes in on a daily basis at the office that any one of us may handle on any given day. So I just wanted to give you a good idea of what that caseload looks like. And a breakdown by agencies, it's been pretty consistent, 15, 16, 17, 18. You can see, Bradley's right around 20%, C's around 35%, Sheriff's consistently 10 to 13%, KMEG's about 10% now. So those numbers have remained pretty static. also have Val Gunderson here. She's our assistant state attorney that handles all of our DUI felony traffic prosecutions. She won an award last year. She was one of only 2 prosecutors in the state for her work on DUIs. She has been spearheading our effort on the no refusal policy, which is where if they refuse to blow, we seek a warrant for blood draw. And I was hoping we could give her a few minutes to come up and just give you an update on how that's going, if that's okay.
Great.
Anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah. Any questions for?
No.
We have
Seriously,
a motion
you
and a
have- you have
second on the
question?
floor.
Okay, all right.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Mr. Rowe put in here the 2018 DUIs, 2017 and 16. I have been keeping stats. I have been doing this for about 14 years now. You can see consistently, well, in the last year, in 2018, there were 321 DUI cases filed. As indicated in this pamphlet, not all cases are resolved in a one-year period. Some of them are still pending. But in 2018, we had 170 DUI convictions. 23 of those cases were reduced to reckless driving. Otherwise reduced, like to a different offense, only 1, and 2 dismissals for the entire year. I think that speaks loudly that I only dismissed 2 DUIs in an entire year period. And that could be because the officer no longer works here, we didn't have a witness, it could be because the defendant is deceased. I do keep track of why I dismiss some of these cases, but I think it's huge that the officers, we've had a lot of trainings. I have gone out to the police departments. We've gone over writing our DUI reports, basis for stops, things of that nature. So I think that we are doing well. This county is doing very well in our DUI enforcement. As for the search warrants, the no refusals, we have done 5 total. County had 2. Bradley has had 2, and Mantino has had 1. We did 2 trial run periods for the search warrants. One was over Thanksgiving weekend, and the second one was between Christmas and New Year's. Each time that the officers have applied for a search warrant, it was allowed, it was granted. We were not denied on any of our search warrants, so the officers did have probable cause before they contacted me and before we contacted a judge. Of those 5 search warrants, we only had 1 person who then still refused to comply with the police, and they were then charged with a felony obstruction. All of those cases are currently pending right now, all 5 of them. I do have a hearing scheduled this afternoon on one of them, but I anticipate, since the judge has already found probable cause on our stop, that we should be victorious in the hearing this afternoon. I think going forward, we're looking to become a no refusal county all of the time on all cases. It's most important on repeat offenders. People that have had 2 or more DUIs are likely not to comply with any requests of the police. They're likely not to submit to any type of field sobriety testing or submit to any type of chemical testing. So it is important to keep our roads safe, to not have intoxicated drivers on the roads. The felony traffic stats also were included in here. Certain offenses become mandatory prison or jail time. Driving suspendeds, revokes, aggravated DUIs. Those are all included there. It's also, I think, speaks loud that none of them were dismissed last year. There was no felony traffic charge that was dismissed in 2018. And they were not reduced to misdemeanors either. So either we had convictions that went to prison, probation, or received conditional discharge. Do you have anything else you want me to talk about?
Hope to
Anything
never
else?
see you.
Okay.
But Mr. Rowe, hang on.
Wait.
Real quick, today's Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I just want to say on behalf of the State's Attorney's Office, we really appreciate our relationship and the work we do every day with law enforcement officers, Sheriff's Department, every police department in the county, state police, KMEG. We appreciate the work you do, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Snipes.
Jim beat me to it, but I was going to also say thank you, and then thank you all for the work you do from time to time. I do go into the courts, and I do monitor, sit in different courtrooms when I am not at work, and just get the opportunity to kind of take a purview, because you hear things on the street, oh, they this way, but you're able to explain it to them in a more, I don't want to say remedial matter, but you can kind of explain to them the process or whatever. And once they understand it, you know, a lot of them just shake their head and, you know, kind of into agreement, because most of these individuals, when they do come in, I know they get the conviction, but at the same time, they do work with the public or whatever, you know, not just come at them and just charge them, but to kind of say, we're here to make sure the roads and things are safe. At the same time, they will work with this as your first time and things of this nature. I've seen that happen on numerous occasions, so therefore it gives just a consumer-friendly ambiance to Kankakee County, so thank you.
Mr. Legess.
I was going to elucidate the same thing.
Thanks, kid. Sometimes maybe I should just ignore him. Okay, moving on. Public Defender is not here. In your packet you have a copy of the Public Defender's monthly report. I'll take a motion to approve it. By Mr. Fairfield, second by Mr. Snipes. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Legess, if I don't call on you anymore, that's all. Don't feel hurt. The Sheriff. In your packet you have a copy of the Sheriff's monthly report, and you should have got it by email the other day. It's up as far high as it goes. Remember last month when you had your list of things that need to be fixed, and I said, new PA system.
I'm trying to save money. Good morning. One thing before we start on our report that I think everybody should know about what the state's attorney's office does and what Val does specifically. As most of you probably know, when our guys are out writing DUIs and other agencies are out writing DUIs, in most cases, 98 or 99% of the time, they're not writing them during the day. They're writing them around closing time of the bars. So when people call Val, it's not at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's at 2 in the morning. And she always answers and is always helpful, and it's such a plus to have, it's such a benefit to have Val available around the clock. She's got a life outside of this job like we all do, but she never not answers. And Val, thank you. It does help our guys tremendously. It does. So I emailed the monthly report. I did just get another email forwarded to me with Kelly sent it out, and I don't know if you send them out to their emails that they look at. Is that the one? I got a list of K3 county emails and another list of emails, that personal emails that you actually check, or some do. So I will start maybe using those as we move forward, but hopefully everybody got a copy of this. So with this being December, the start of a new year, if you look under number 2 or to the far right, that bolded number is the amount that $138,000 is $138,000 more than we generated last December. So far we are ahead of the game. However, I would caution you, and especially the new members that probably haven't heard me say this, we only have so many beds. So those numbers are not going to go up significantly. But to get off to a start this year, obviously we want to make sure that from a revenue standpoint and an expense standpoint that we are continue to be ahead of the game. So those are good numbers. Our local stayed consistent. You know, they're around 260. I think last year they were around 270, so they're down about 10. one of the changes, and I think one of the myths that the board hears sometimes is that because of one certain population, that's where our money's coming from, and I can tell you that in fiscal year 17, we averaged 156 U.S. Marshal inmates, and in fiscal year 18, we averaged 190 U.S. Marshal inmates. So those numbers have significantly increased, which, if you take that average of 34 inmates per day times 80 times 365, that equates out to about $990,000 of additional revenue with U.S. Marshals alone. So don't be fooled by the fact that we're just using one portion of our detainees as revenue. This is we have a number of other counties. We have Cook County, we have the Marshals, and we have ICE, and so that's where our revenue comes from. So our transports, there's really, as the first month, there's really not any change in the consistency of our transports. We continue to do that. Our transport supervisors do an outstanding job in using the vehicles and utilizing our vehicles to save both mileage, and the higher mileage vehicles, our older vehicles, do stay mainly in town. We don't transport out of county with a lot of our older vehicles. They do stay in town just in case. But they are well taken care of. Jay Hansen, our vehicle maintenance guy, does a great job, as do our transport supervisors. Utilize those vehicles and look at the big picture as far as what vehicles we're using to move inmates. One concerning issue, and we're seeing more and more of this, and we've talked about it a number of times, and that is the number of people getting released from Department of Corrections back into our community. In December, there were 91 released from the Illinois Department of Corrections back into our community. If that number remains consistent, and we have no reason to think it won't, I mean, that would put us in Kankakee as having over 1,000 inmates released from the Illinois Department of Corrections back into our community. Now, obviously, the hope is that through parole and through other programs that those that get released don't reoffend, but unfortunately, we know that a lot of times that's not the case. So that is a little bit concerning on our end. So, questions on the corrections side? Moving to the sworn division, the glaring number that sticks out is under our citations, and if you look at citations in December last year, we wrote 54 citations, 44 warnings. In December of 2018, we wrote 189 citations, 79 warnings. That's up 170 from last year. Remember that writing tickets is not a revenue issue for us, it's a traffic safety issue for us. So our guys are out there visible, writing tickets when they need to write tickets, writing warnings when they need to write warnings. Everything else is fairly consistent. Any questions? And lastly, there is one change at the bottom. Your number that you were provided Monday when the email went out under the overtime salary reimbursement, I believe was somewhere around 49,000 or so. I don't know what exactly that number is, but that number is actually 69,815. So there was about a $20,000 difference, and that was just from the transport sheets and the reimbursement information coming in a little bit later. Better to be higher than lower. So, and if you look down at the average month, we're significantly over any month we've had, or any average that we've had over the past, that's 5 years, so even more than that. So, any questions?
Questions, comments, Mr. Snipes?
We wind back to the individuals that are being released. Is there a category as to the nonviolent versus violent offenders, or we have no idea?
No, we get informed when they are getting released from the Illinois Department of Corrections. It says what they're charged with, or what they were convicted of, but there's no differentiation between violent and nonviolent.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I just have a couple other quick things. We will have our annual statistical report ready for this committee in February. So that will be, we'll be working on that this next month and have that information to you. And lastly, you know, we thought that I think last year when our maintenance director was retiring, that it was the end of the world. And while he was outstanding, did a great job, I have to tell you that his replacement is just as good and doing a great job. And this committee should know that that Wes Andrews and his staff have continued to move our maintenance division forward. Things are, it was like there was no change. So I think that's something that this committee and those of you that are on building and ground should know, that we are in good hands with our maintenance department. So that's all I got.
Kudos.
Yep.
Okay,
No,
Mr. Legis.
This is straight stuff. I just want to thank Mike. I did tell him personally, but it really is helpful to get that report ahead of time and be able to look it over and really see what's going on. Before, you know, it was nice, it was up on the screen, but boom, it was hard to decipher it. But
It's easier to look at a hard copy.
yeah, it is. It's and I thank you, Mike. It really helps out before you get here to be able to look at that.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probation, Mr. Latham. In your package, you have a copy of Mr. Latham's monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Lear, second by Mr. Legis. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Just to review some year-end totals. As you can see, we had 1,925 successful contacts in December, which put us at 30,276 for 2018. That compares to 30,431 in 17, so about 200 less. But we did have a couple vacancies. We completed 610 investigations and collected a little over 2,000 drug tests. We screened 283 minors for detention and detained 155. In 2000, that's up from 2017 when we detained 146. However, our detention days overall, specifically at River Valley, decreased by about 1,000. So we had a lot less detention days. Our year-end stats are very similar to last year, which you got to give a lot of credit to our staff because we did have 2 vacancies, one in our problem-solving courts. The individual handles both drug court and veterans court, and then a field unit officer. Plus, we had someone on lengthy medical leave. So for those stats to match up to 2017 like they did, says a lot, because that work gets spread out among everybody else. They had to step up and do it, and they did it. So I just want to give them some credit because that's a lot of work. So, any questions about it?
Mr.
Thank you,
Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the juvenile detention facility. It was good news, actually. I assume obviously you got the numbers together and compared and agreed on what detention day meant, the timing of it.
Yeah.
Is a detention day from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to really define that kind of stuff. So we kind of we bumped into a few of those. So, so this committee knows, and it's more of a financial issue, but that means the length of the time that we have to use our bank, if you will, gets extended because those averages were based on what we currently use it at. And so this will mean this agreement to that we won't have to pay could potentially go longer if this trend continues. So
Especially if you stay under 12 beds.
exactly,
It'll
we
stretch
stay
out
at 12,
farther.
you know, and it's addition by subtraction. It's something we don't have to pay for, so it helps the general fund. So we're still looking at 23, I believe, is when that may run out, but it's still a lot better than, you know, it helps us get ahead of the game. Just want to mention that.
Yeah.
mic is on. It's just hard to hear you. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Anything else?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. Grant and aid, we did start receiving state fiscal year 19 grant and aid. We received it this week, July and August. For the new members who don't know, the county receives an annual allocation that covers a large percentage of our department salaries in both Kankakee and Iroquois offices. So sometimes that can fall behind. We get it all at the end of the year, but sometimes we can go months without getting that allocation. So when we start seeing it flow through, it's a good thing. So it's usually about 98, close to $100,000 a month we would get. So we got a couple months worth on Monday, I think it was. So just I'll keep you updated on that. And grant funding, we have 2 positions that are fully funded by a grant. As you know, the federal shutdown has impacted that. We were given notice Friday, I think it was, that because of the shutdown, they can't process payments for the grants. Now, I called the grant monitor. What that impacts really right here, right now, is the grants that ended December 31st. We're sending that last quarter of payment request in. That's going to be held up until this shutdown's over. The new grant period that started January 1st, we send in payment requests quarterly, so it won't be to after March that we send that in. So I'm hoping by that time it will be done, hopefully. But so I don't think it's going to impact the current grant period.
What is that quarter? What's that worth, money-wise?
Where did I have to break it down? I think the total grants for our department specifically is like $160,000.
So it'll be 40,000. Mr. Legess.
That doesn't hold up on our end, anybody getting paid though.
No, I mean that. Andy can speak. That works in the negative anyway, the grant. So I don't think it's gonna really change anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, they've already been paid
Yes.
because it's Q4. What it does is it affects our year end. If we don't have that cash revenue and it affects what our year looks like last year. Yeah, so our number could be understated on the revenue side. So, the surplus that we ran, the over $3 million surplus we ran last year, thank goodness we did. But it may, depending on, because you're not the only one. There's other people that have grant funded positions. State's Attorney, I believe, has some stuff on the federal side. Other people do. I think the sheriff does have maybe 1 or 2. So if that's held up, it may affect our 2018, which we're wrapping up right now.
We will get it. That's the important part. We will get it.
Mr. Legess?
Yeah, just one other question. Are the security issues at your building, is that all taken care of now?
Well, right now we're at the point where what's left is the funding of the positions and the hiring of the positions is out of Tom's hands. So it's really everything else that needs to be done to be ready for it is ready for it. So it's just those 2 parts. So.
Mr. Snipes?
I think because he stated we're going to get it, it's basically for the books. I think we kind of operate on a accrual method, so they're just going to go back in when the money comes in and change the year end as far as that's concerned. So, no, when the audit's already done, but I'm thinking for the method of reporting, it would be accrual, because if it was straight cash basis, we would be in trouble. So it's just a matter of adjustment after that comes in to kind of offset our basis as far as the cash is concerned.
And I'll say with this grant, when the government's not shut down, we do get that. The payments come in pretty quick after we send our request in. So hopefully this will be done here pretty soon. We can just move on.
Good. Any other questions for Tom? Thank you. Coroner, Mr. Gessner. Let me be the first to tell you happy birthday for Friday. Yeah, your birthday Friday, I believe.
I don't count after 70.
In your packet, you have a copy of the monthly report from the coroners and also a copy of the income summary report. Take a motion to combine and approve them. Mr. Carrico, second by Mr. Legess. comments on your report, sir?
Well, it's an easy report to read out of there. It's a single column since it's the beginning of the year. Get a total of number of 95 calls, and incidentally, in the 2018, I will have a report, like the sheriff said, on my full 2018, which is we're looking to be very proud of. I'll mention a little bit about it today, but we had 1,369 calls last year, which is the last 2 years have been outstanding. The amount of calls we're getting in our office. So. Other than that, it's pretty well self-explanable. We have 5 autopsies on down the line, 4 that are incomplete right now. Other than that, I'll take any questions on that.
Questions on the monthly report? Income summary?
No, I don't have anything on that. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions on that? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Just a couple of things. I'd like to look to my left over here to see Colton Eckhoff over here. He took one of my suggestions of all the new people that are on the board there to come to watch what we do in our area. As Morgie came and watched an autopsy, did an excellent job. Went out of there happy. He didn't fall. No. He did a good job, and I appreciate you coming to learn our value of what we do in our office, and the value of the morgue, which a lot of people don't go and see, which is outstanding in the state of Illinois. So, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Also too, that just want to let you know that the amount of overdoses that we had in 2017 was 56. We had a total of in 2018 29. Which is a great drop, which is going to drop our budget quite considerably. We budgeted it for $516,000, and we've done an outstanding job to be able to bring that down. Not only with salaries, but the grant that we get, salary reimbursements, almost $18,000 back to the county from our salary reimbursements. Mileage is about $1,500 we got back, and the morgue use about $6,000. If we put everything together here with our overall budget, which we saved, we're coming in right around $457,000 in our budget, which we were 516. A total amount that we've saved and brought back to the county now is $84,000 from our particular office, which we're very proud of, and a lot of work that we did out in the field paid off to bring those down. We're very proud of that, and I hope when I bring my budget back to you, I mean, it's going to change. You saw what 2017 did to my budget to 2018, so we're at the same as what we had last year, and hopefully we can continue. That's the first time in my career of over 30-some years in the coroner's office that I've been able to bring back money. It's always, never could understand that can fluctuate, and we finally did it. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Also, just want to let you know, in case this comes through, and this will be paid for out of my coroner's fees, but we had dinner for the funeral home, all of the funeral homes in our county, and a little bit from Iroquois here, right here in this facility. I had a full dinner for them because they do so much for us, indigent people. Instead of paying $2,300 to $3,000 for burial out of there, we get a different price on that, and they save us considerably amount of money. They do a lot for us, and I like to do communications with them to understand if we have a problem, which we do have a couple of problems, and we're going to isolate those and fix those. But those are good to have. I try to have that every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever I can, whenever I can afford to have that. But I think it's a positive thing. You know, so you see that come through, but it's paid for by me. So it's not going to cost the county. So just want to let you know. Other than that, I think that's all I have.
Questions for the coroner? Mr. Snipes.
Oh, shock. Sure it wasn't for Mr. Rowe.
Close. Have your the number of bags. I know sometimes you had a deficiency as far as those bags that you deliver bodies in or whatever. Have
Body bags.
right? Have you reached the point of power equilibrium with them?
As far as
The bags, are you up to?
we're up to snuff with those. We ordered a lot in 17 because we were running out real kind of quick. No, we're well up on those.
All right.
Do you need one? Oh, never mind.
I was just going to ask that question.
Any other questions for the coroner? Thank you, sir.
And thank you for all the new members. And again, if you want to come and see an autopsy, you're more than welcome to. Or just come through the office. I'll take you through when nobody's out there at all. It's great. I'm very proud of it. And Wes, they said highly to you. Thank you for what you do for me. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any old business coming before the committee? Any old business? Any new business? Mr. Legess?
I'm not sure this can be discussed in open session, but I was wondering if there's any contemplated action with the establishment that's on Armour Road that they're having problems with shootings in the parking lot and so on. My concern is it's so close to the retail hub and also so close to one of our largest employees there, that one of these times one of these stray bullets are going to hit somebody and then we've got a bigger problem. And also I know for a fact that the new hot activity is that developers are looking at is from North Street to Armour Road. That's where they all want to be now because of a lot of the expansion that's going in there and the Meyer store, so everybody wants that location now. So I'm concerned that it's so close to all this activity that if we're going to continually have a problem with it, are we going to look into some kind of ability to close that down? Does anybody know?
Mr. Rowe?
So I just want to give you some perspective on that, and I think Mr. Byrne can as well, because I know he's looked into it. When we look at nuisance properties in the county, right, there are some that are just way higher priority. I'll give you an example. Route 50 Motel, right? Ton of calls to that address. And it really became a nuisance property, so we moved forward with that, filed some injunctions, I believe, or complaints in court. That call volume, it should be almost at zero right now because I don't think that the hotel's open, or at least very low. When we go to the next most troubled property, I think it's the trailer park out in that area, I believe.
A trailer park in Bourbonnais, and then the one adjacent to where the establishment is. The establishment you're talking about has issues on a Saturday night occasionally. The call volume for properties adjacent to it are much higher than that. But yet there's no concern about, I don't hear concerns about that. The trailer park next door has more calls of service than the establishment you're talking about.
But you said the establishment next to the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's the trailer park.
Yep, the trailer park in the TriStar Estates and the trailer park, I think it changed over names, used to be Birches. Those two locations have a higher call volume than the establishment there on Armour Road.
And
Just
the other night, at the huddle, there was an incident. Inside it was a domestic situation. A girlfriend and a boyfriend got in an argument. She became upset with them. I think she threw a pool ball or something at him.
Pool ball that went through a window.
Yeah, they left the bar. They were outside. I believe there was an officer outside sitting in a marked vehicle, and they started to fight. You know, they started arguing or fighting. They eventually left there, but that's something that I don't think the owners of the huddle can control. I don't think that's something you can even predict. You know, when you talk with the owners of the huddle, they tell you that if they have someone that comes in their establishment and they're a problem, they're not going to allow them back into the huddle. So I think they're taking steps to try to secure their property, to secure their business, to keep their business open. You know, they've been very cooperative with law enforcement. I believe they've had some conversations maybe with the sheriff, with the chairman. I don't see them as a property where the owners aren't willing to work with law enforcement to try to curb some of the issues they have. But I don't know how you stop people from getting in a dispute or fighting. You know, there could be a riot in aisle 3 at the Walmart. You know, we couldn't shut down the Walmart. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I apologize.
No, that's not
just
how
stay,
it went.
stay out of that aisle next time.
Sheriff, you have a comment?
Go what Mr. Rowe had said about that establishment. I can say that our call volume at that establishment has dropped significantly. As Jim said, they want to run a good business, and every bar, you know, there are things that happen when people are under the influence of alcohol. One thing to keep in mind, though, when you think about the huddle specifically, is that years ago, some of you may remember, that same establishment was called John's Pub. And I can tell you that the calls for service there were just as significant as the calls at the huddle. So I don't know if it's the location, but we received a number of calls back in the day when that was a different name and different clientele. So I don't know that we can now say, oh, we're getting a lot of calls, so let's, you know, look at options. The owners are very willing to work with us. We've had great conversation with them, and as Jim said, you know, you can't control what happens when a significant other gets mad at their significant other. You know, those things happen. We are aware, as law enforcement, it is our jurisdiction. We're aware they want us there, outside, when needed, and so that's all you can ask of any business. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment.
Any other new business come before the committee? Any other new business? Take a motion to adjourn, Mr. Legess, second by Prentice, or Mrs. Akulo, sorry. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.